Welcome, everyone, to the postseason edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo. We're bouncing around with the days a little bit because of my schedule, traveling around, but I appreciate everyone's flexibility with our show. I appreciate your flexibility in bearing with us. Alanna, how are you? We're having an interesting start to the ALCS.
Yeah, Ken, great to be with you as always. The hardest working man in the game, bebopping all over the country. I tell you what, so much though, Ken, for home cooking. Both of the road teams on each side have won going home with a 2-0 advantage.
It's really surprising, Alana, and especially surprising on the American League side after the way the Blue Jays looked in the division series against the Yankees. But we have a potential problem ahead here. And I want to
Mhm.
start with this before we dive into the two series. We have a situation where both of these series could end in 5 games or less. Certainly, that's a possibility. The home team, all it has to do in each case is win 2 of 3. And if that happens, we're looking at a long layoff before the World Series for both teams. Now, if you remember last year, MLB had determined that it was going to it was going to start the World Series earlier, move it up if the two LCSs ended in 5 games or less, if there was going to be that kind of gap. This year, they've abandoned that plan. In August, the league announced that it wasn't going to do that. The World Series would start on October 24th, regardless. So that's the way it's going to go. So if the Mariners, for example, sweep the Blue Jays, if this series ends Thursday night, which would be the case if it went 4 games, they're looking at a 1 week layoff. And if the Dodgers sweep the Brewers, it's, I believe, a 5 or 6 day layoff. So I don't know that that's ideal. You want to carry the momentum from these two series into the World Series. But at the same time, the other end of it, as we've seen, is that it gets teams rest. It allows the pitching in particular to refuel and recharge. So I don't know how it's going to turn out. Maybe both these series end up going long and we don't have that problem. But it's certainly a possibility the way these two things have started.
Yeah, you're almost hoping as a fan that you know what at least the team that hasn't won a game yet can at least wins one, make it at least a 5 game series to make it interesting and not have such a huge layoff. Let's talk about the Dodgers and the Brewers first. Brewers down 0-2 in the series, both those games, of course, at American Family Field. They head back to Los Angeles now. But what about the starting pitching, Ken, for LA? The biggest issue was the Dodgers bullpen is so bad. We really haven't had to see them in the last 2 games because of Snell and Yamamoto.
Well, that's right, Alana. If the bullpen doesn't pitch, it can't be an issue. And actually, it was a bit of an issue in game 1 because of when Snell left the game, what happened. But my goodness, these two guys have been absolutely brilliant. Go to Jason Stark's story in today's Athletic to see just how brilliant it was in the context of history. 8 innings from Snell, 9 from Yamamoto, and they've basically suffocated the Brewers. It's as simple as that. It's no discredit to the Brewers. They ran up against two incredible pitchers and two guys at the top of their game. And the Brewers' issue from the start of this series was the fact that their pitching is not as whole as it was, say, in July. There's no Woodruff. There are other issues that have come up, and it's just a little bit of a shame that they're kind of operating at a disadvantage. Don't really have a starter for game 3. But all credit to the Dodgers here. And I know I've questioned them. You've questioned them, Alana, I believe, as well, for kind of coasting through the season. Well, they seem to have the right idea. They seem to be doing this right. There's 2 games away from going back to the World Series with a chance to be the first back-to-back champions since the 1998 to 2000 Yankees.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy to watch. And I tell you what, to see Blake Snell go as long as he did and to see Yamamoto have a complete game, those are back in yesteryear in terms of the way that the game used to be played. You don't see that very often anymore. What do you make, Ken, of the series that you've been covering with the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners? I'm really surprised that Seattle has been as good as they have been, only because of the flight and the 15-inning games and the DS. What do you make of it? You're seeing it from a different vantage point.
All of this is surprising. The Mariners and the Blue Jays. And I was just concocting some numbers this morning about the Blue Jays' offensive performance in this series. It has not been good. They have in the first 2 games one hit, one after the second inning. One hit after the second inning. Hard to win that way. And this is a team that, of course, in the division series against the Yankees, put up 34 runs in 4 games. That's an average of 8.5 runs per game. And suddenly they're averaging 2 runs per game against the Mariners, who have just pitched brilliantly, even after an aborted start from Logan Gilbert in game 2 when he wasn't good. Wasn't good at all. He pitched 3 innings. So I am surprised, obviously, by the performances of both teams here. The Mariners seem to have carried their momentum from the DS, regardless of playing 15 innings in Game 5, into this series, and certainly tonight, playing at home, where their fans have been waiting the entire franchise history for the team to make the World Series. The atmosphere will be supercharged, but the atmosphere was supercharged at Rogers Center until the games kind of got away from the Blue Jays, and then it got quiet. So I don't rule anything out, actually, in either series. The way this season has gone, Alanna, and you know this, we've seen teams get hot, we've seen them get cold, and we've seen it happen quickly. It happened quickly to the Blue Jays here. The Mariners are playing at a high level. They're really good. They have the pitching advantage the next 2 nights in terms of the starters. But at the same time, would I be shocked if the Blue Jays won tonight and then with Max Scherzer going tomorrow, this series would get a little bit more dramatic? I would not be shocked. So the whole key to me, as bad as the Blue Jays bullpen has been, is the offense. They have to score, they have to get the lead, and they have to just create a margin for error for their pitching staff, which they've been unable to do in these first 2 games.
Ken, what would be dramatic, though, is if the teams that are down 0-2 right now somehow came back and won this dang thing and made their way to the World Series. What we're seeing right now, Ken, is unprecedented. You can see there a tweet by David Vassay. Only 5 teams have come back in the best of 7 LCS history after being down 0-2. Could it happen this year? I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure either, because these teams have started 0-2 on the road. And in this era of 7-game LCSs since 1985, that has never happened, where a team down 0-2 on the road has won. In 1970, you see this tweet right here. Yes, it happened in 1970, but that was a 3-game LCS. So it was a little bit different. This is going to be a difficult task for both these clubs, no question. And certainly with the Brewers now facing Glasnow and Ohtani, it's really difficult. The Blue Jays, too, because it's Bieber and Scherzer versus George Kirby and Luis Castillo, they don't have the edge in either of those matchups. So obviously it's an extreme challenge that these teams are facing. It would be shocking if it turned around, but at the same time, John Smoltz talks about this all the time on the broadcast, and he played in so many postseasons. All it takes is one game to shift the narrative. And if the Blue Jays win tonight, the narrative does shift. Now, a lot would be on Scherzer tomorrow, and Scherzer has not pitched, I believe, since September 20th. It's a tall task, but he's Max Scherzer. We'd have some drama at the very least.
All right, some questions need to be answered, and you can ask Ken Rosenthal next. And coming up as Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal continues, Grillin Ken is next. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Kratz, I'm going to steal a line right from the top here about MeUndies. A cut for every butt. I took a line that I feel like you would enjoy, but then you stole my thunder with show and tell. What do you have there?
Besides a huge Baduka dunk, this is my pair of MeUndies that I got. I'm not going to show you the other pair right now because I got them on, but it doesn't even feel like you have them on. Super soft, flexible, and yet holding everything together.
I love the 20 different styles, 100 different colors and prints, and the micro-modal fabric is what you're talking about. Breathable, stretchy, unbelievably cozy. And right now, as a listener of FT, you can get cozy and spooky for less with deals up to 50% off at MeUndies.com/foul and enter promo code FOUL. That's MeUndies.com/foul, promo code FOUL for up to 50% off. MeUndies, comfort that's made for fall.
All right, time now to ask Ken Rosenthal a question. What is on your mind, you guys? Now's the perfect opportunity to ask Ken. The first question is coming from Luke Artema 7056. Why are so many managers fired and not general managers? It seems like he was in on our production call, Ken Rosenthal.
Luke, I am going to say that we need to wait a little bit, and I'll get into this more on Dude and Dork, but you asked the right question. And it's certainly statistically something that people should be thinking about right now. We have 8 managerial openings. We have 1 general manager opening, the one in Colorado. That seems to suggest an imbalance, does it not? It seems to suggest that the accountability is not quite the same. Now, here are the managerial openings. You can see them right there. The Padres joining the list. Angels, Braves, Giants, Padres, Twins as the current openings. Interim managers yet to be decided, but these jobs must be considered open as well. Nationals, Orioles, and Rockies. The Rangers have filled theirs with Skip Schumacher. So certainly in each case with the managers, and Mike Schultz a little bit of an exception because he retired, but when a managerial change takes place, there are certain justifications. You can see why it happens, but at the same time, you can make the same questions or have the same questions about general managers, and they never seem to be held as accountable. But we'll be back with more when we get back to Dude and Dork of the Week.
All right, our next question is kind of related to managerial openings, but this is from Brianna, which, hi Brianna, that's my sister's name. That is not my sister, but that is my sister's name. She wants to know, Ken, is the Padres job a good one? And I'm inferring that she's asking because it seems like there's a lot of turnover in that position in San Diego.
There has been a ton of turnover under A.J. Preller, who took over in the fall of 2014. I don't know if I have my math right, but I believe the next manager will be their seventh under Preller in like 11 years. That's an incredibly high rate of turnover. Now, is the job a good one? Well, that's a multi-layered question. The team is good, right? The team is certainly good. Manny Machado maybe not what he was offensively in his prime, but is still a really effective and good player. Tatis, Cronenworth, all the guys that they have, Bogarts. This is a good offensive team. It's a team with a great bullpen. It's also a team that has serious rotation questions because of the potential free agencies of Dylan Cease and Michael King and the payroll questions that they are having now with Peter Seidler no longer with us, their owner who was so willing to spend whatever it took, it seemed, to bring a championship to San Diego. I would say the job is a good one. It's certainly better than some of the ones we just listed because the team is closer to winning. But at the same time, there has been a high rate of turnover among their managers. And if you're looking at the job, you have to keep that in mind. You have to wonder what's going on here. Why is it that managers seem to not last very long in San Diego? Now, again, Schilt is a little bit of a different story because of what he said, that the job took a mental, physical, and emotional toll on him. There's stuff coming out now that suggests that there was more going on. John Heyman had a note today about friction with the coaches. Kevin A.C. in the San Diego Union Tribune wrote a story about friction with the coaches. There were other things going on here. But at the same time, that's the question, right? Is this job desirable? I would say the answer is yes, but you have to have your eyes wide open.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It seems like there's, like I said, a carousel in terms of managers. Thank you, Brianna, for the question. The next question is from LivZ-K1. I hate this. I hate that this is even a question, but could we see Tarek Skubal traded?
The answer is yes, Liz, or Liv. And the reason is he is 1 year away from free agency. He is a guy that obviously is at the top of his game. He's going to win his second straight Cy Young Award. And the Tigers, while they might want to keep him and while they might have the resources to keep him, I would not expect that they're going to be able to sign him to an extension before he hits the open market. Tarek Skubal is represented by Scott Boras. Scott Boras' clients generally, not always, generally prefer to establish their values on the open market through free agency. And certainly if you're Tarek Skubal, yeah, you want to do that. So could the Tigers blow him away? I guess that's possible, but I don't expect that to happen. So if you're looking at the potential loss of a pitcher of this caliber, yes, you have to entertain the idea of trading him and getting more than a draft pick in return. Because if you put Tarek Skubal out on the open market, not the open market for free agency, but I'm talking about the trade market, you're going to get some interesting offers. There's no question. I can think of one team in particular that could badly use Tarek Skubal, and it's the New York Mets. And that's just one team. Every team would want him. He is that good. So if you're the Tigers, yes, you have to entertain this rather than face the risk of losing him for only draft pick compensation. It's simply good business.
And you know what? It's the same type of question, I would imagine, for Paul Skeens on the National League side. A question here from Daniel Alvarez. Will Paul Skeens get traded this offseason? Almost the same situation, right?
Not at all, really, because Alanna, just the difference in control. Now, I know why you're thinking it's the same situation because he's not going to sign there. Yes, but Skeens, I don't know the exact number of years of control left. I believe it's 4. And even if it's 3, whatever the case might be, the Pirates have to at least think about the future. Now, if I were them, I would keep him, and I would say, let's take a look at improving the team for next year and taking advantage of the time we do have Paul Skeens, because that time is obviously precious. It's not a situation where you can say, we only have Paul Skeens now for 1 more year. No, you've got him for a couple of more years, and if you can do this right, you can actually get him. I'm looking up how many years of control right now because I want to get this straight. So if I'm the Pirates, maybe I start listening, but yes, I'm right. It's 4 years more of control. So you run the risk of him getting hurt, of course, if you keep him. But at the same time, my goodness, they have pitching to compete. They don't have offense to compete, but they're in a division where they can be reasonably competitive if they make the right moves and if they spend some money. It's pretty simple. Now, if you're the owner, Bob Nutting, and you're not going to spend, and you're the general manager, Ben Cherington, and you know you're under restrictions with payroll and you really can't do much other than maybe trade some of your pitching for hitting, which is something they absolutely should do, well, maybe then you look at trading Skeens too. But my goodness, you've got this unbelievable pitcher. Try to win with him. How about that concept?
What a thought. Try to win with him. I love it, Ken. All right, another question here. I will flip you the bird. Well, I hope not. Geez. I know I'm behind on the news, but why isn't Ron Washington coming back? Obviously, coming back to manage the Angels. That's one of the openings. Is he not well enough to return? What do you know, Ken?
Well, this was the Angels' decision not to bring him back. And they may have decided, because he's coming off a quadruple bypass, because he is, I believe, 74, that it just wasn't the right circumstance to keep Ron Washington as their manager. Now, we know Wash wants to manage still, and he wants to be back in the game in that capacity, but certainly the health and the age would discourage maybe teams from hiring him, and that's unfortunate in a lot of ways because he is someone that makes the game better. But it was the Angels' decision, not Ron Washington's, to not come back as manager.
Yeah, the guy lives and breathes baseball. Been around this game for a very long time. Certainly wishing him well in whatever the future holds for Ron Washington. Okay, coming up on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal on this special edition on Wednesday, we are talking about Dude and Dork of the Week. We'll be right back after a quick break. BetMGM is giving you the chance to win a prize every day during the baseball season. Step into the batter's box for BetMGM's Swing for the Fences free-to-play game. Visit the BetMGM app to access the game, and you'll score a prize if you hit a single, double, triple, or home run. Strikeout? No problem. Try again tomorrow. Gambling problem or concern? There is help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, if you're a card collector or you're looking to collect, buy, sell, trade, Arena Club's the spot. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the old process, AJ, was very clunky. Buy a box, rip the pack, tons of commons, send it in for grading. And then finally, you get everything back. This is weeks and weeks, and you can start to try and sell the card. We have eliminated that with Arena Club, or they have. I act like I'm part of it, but in really one step.
Arena's your one-stop shop for everything. You get a card, you open a slab pack, the card is there, it's graded, it spins around coolly, shows you 3D, the front, the back, you can look at the corners, you can look at everything, and then you get a decision. Do I want to keep it? Do I want to sell it? Do I want to trade it? It gives you an instant offer. You can buy it back and re-rip another slab pack and try for something else, or you can keep it and hope the value goes up and sell it at a later date. It is truly the best spot to get cards.
20% off your first slab pack or card purchase can be had right now at arenaclub.com/FOUL and use code FOUL. Dude.
Or dude first. Who is it?
Jorge Polanco of the Seattle Mariners, and I think for obvious reasons, Alanna, based on what he has done in these playoffs. Game 2 of the division series, 2 home runs off Tarek Skubal. Game 5 of the division series, the walk-off in the 15th. And then in the LCS, he has been absolutely a dominant player. 4 for 9, home run, 3 RBIs. What's interesting is the perception is, after all I just said, he's having this amazing postseason. but he was only 4 for 22 in the division series. Just so happened that the hits were incredibly clutch. The 2 homers off Skubal, as I mentioned, and the walk-off in Game 5. But for all of that, Jorge Polanco, a much deserving dude of the week, especially because he lingered on the free agent market until February 2nd. Nobody wanted Jorge Polanco. Guess what? For $7.75 million, might have been the best signing of the winter.
Yeah, no doubt about that. My dude of the week goes to Max Muncy, and I also want to thank the Athletics for DFAing him. I understand he was a different player at the time. I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but Max Muncy didn't have a job, and he was kind of just sitting on the couch, and here come the Los Angeles Dodgers and gave him an opportunity. And the reason he's the dude of the week, Ken, is because he now holds the record for most postseason home runs in Dodgers history. That's pretty impressive when you think about the fact that this guy didn't have a job at one point. He wasn't a homegrown talent like the Corey Seagers of the world, but he's on the list with the Justin Turners, Corey Seagers, Duke Snyders. Congratulations, Max Muncy. And honestly, he could have another one just by that much if that ball that was supposed to be a grand slam ended up into that 8-6-2 double play. But a home run last night. Congratulations to Max Muncy. Okay. Time now for our dork of the week right after this. Okay, I'm going to go first, I think. My dork of the week, and let me preface this by saying it is a very difficult job what home plate umpires do. Really, the entire officiating crew for Major League Baseball. And obviously in the postseason, they have 2 additional guys trying to make sure they're doing things right. But Doug Eddings, my goodness, I'm not sure if it was a bad night or what's happening. But if you take a look at what happened in ALCS Game 2, Ken, I know you're there, but it's not a level of accuracy that we're looking for in the postseason. 91% overall accuracy, a lot of missed calls in terms of balls and strikes. So Doug Eddings, you are my dork of the week. I know it's a difficult job. I'm not saying it isn't, but at the most important and critical time of the season, you got to be a little bit better than that behind the plate.
Hey, it wasn't his best night. There's no question about that. Both teams had some beef with him, but at the same time, this outcome of the game was 10-3. So It was not like Doug Eddings influenced the outcome of the game. But Alanna, I hear you. At this time of year, you want to see the absolute best from the umpires. Now, I will go with my dork of the week. And the questioner before kind of stole my thunder when he asked why there are so many managerial openings and not enough GM openings. That is what I wanted to discuss. It's not a singular dork of the week. It's just a trend in the industry where the managers get blamed, and often, as I said, rightly so, but the GMs seem to go and rebuild and endlessly go on this loop. It's not right. And I don't know what owners are thinking when they allow certain GMs to just keep going with their rebuilding plans or to keep going after failures that get managers fired. But it seems to be that the GMs are far more secure than the managers, and there is an imbalance there. There's no question about that. And no one in the industry would dispute it. And in some cases, and I'm not going to name names in this particular show, this particular time, in some cases, it just seems a little bit odd, to say the least. So I guess the dork of the week would be the industry, which is pretty broad for dork of the week. But it's the industry for blaming managers when GMs often are just as responsible, if not more so, for the construction of the roster, certainly, and the direction of the team.
Let me ask you this. How often is it that the general manager and manager are a tandem, a package deal, if you will? Like, for example, in New York, that's the one example I can think of the most with Brian Cashman, perhaps Aaron Boone. Now, Brian Cashman has been the GM of the Yankees for 20-something years, maybe almost 30 years. So how often does that happen, Ken, where it's like if the manager's going to go, the GM has to go with them or vice versa?
Washington Nationals, that was a good example of a situation where they fired both. And it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it does. And Alanna, you make a great point there. Cashman and Boone are very closely linked. And it's difficult to imagine the Yankees dismissing one without the other. Now, I wrote at the end of the DS, and I had members of my own family disagree with me on this, but I wrote that what happened with the Yankees this season was not cause to fire either one of them. And I know there are fans of the Yankees who are very frustrated with what has gone on here and the fact that it seems to end the same way every year. Well, a lot of fan bases would take the Yankees problems. And a lot of fan bases would like to be in the playoffs 27, or not 27 straight years, but have winning seasons 27 straight years, the way Cashman has done, and to have the record that Aaron Boone has compiled over this time as well. As I wrote in that column, only one team gets to win the World Series. It's hard to win the World Series. It's really hard. And if the Dodgers do it back-to-back, it's going to be the first time in a long time that has happened. But at the same time, to get back to the original point here, it's a question of accountability. And if you want to say as a Yankee fan that Cashman and Boone should be held more accountable for the fact that they're not going further, I get that. I just don't think that this season would justify that. If you want to look at the whole picture and say it, okay, and make a change, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, front office accountability, but really an industry-wide problem. Well, if you're watching on TV, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. If we do have a couple more minutes with the YouTube cam right after this. All right. So for those of you that are still with us, we appreciate it. Let me ask you this, Ken. This is a situation with the Dodgers up 2-0. A lot of comments, obviously, on the Dodgers territory post-game about the need for a salary cap. Well, there's some other big money teams that are not in the postseason anymore, Ken. Tell me more.
Well, Alanna, you raise a great point there. And I understand certain fans are going to react that way because the Dodgers have spent a gazillion dollars and spent it pretty well, as it turns out. Blake Snell, $180 million, Yamamoto, $325 million. Those were the first two pitchers in the LCS for them. They're both good. And Glasnow with his $130 million extension and Shohei with his $700 million deal, $480 in present day value. Those guys are coming. So, yeah, I get the point. But at the same time, I would also say, the Phillies are out. They were a top 5 payroll team. The Mets didn't even make the playoffs. They were a top 5 payroll team. The Yankees, another big money team, get knocked out in the division series by a Toronto Blue Jays club that is not a cheap team by any stretch of the imagination. They're top 10 payroll, but at the same time, they're not this behemoth. So fans can say, yes, the sport needs a salary cap, and there's a legitimate argument to be made on every side of this argument or question. But I would suggest that the price of a salary cap, and when I say the price, I mean the cost to the sport with a work stoppage that might last, I don't know, as long as a year, that's too excessive. And as I've said before, figure out a way in this economic system to make it fairer. I don't know that anyone would suggest that the system is working great. It's not. Teams like Cleveland and Pittsburgh and smaller market teams, even though some of them are run poorly, Pittsburgh, they are at a disadvantage. Tampa Bay, at a disadvantage. Milwaukee, at a disadvantage. No question about it. But the way, in my view, to make this better is to give these teams breaks, more advantages, more ways to compete, more draft picks perhaps, greater revenue sharing money. However you want to do it, there's a formula out there to make this better. And it's never going to be perfect the way this sport is designed without a cap. But again, do you want a cap at the expense of losing a season? Because that is the question that the sport is ultimately going to face. And as much positive momentum as baseball has right now, and it does, a lot of good things have happened. Got to give the commission a call.
Yeah.
Same time, you don't want
I
to
just sent you the McCullough.
Yeah, let me ask you this really quickly, Ken. When you say that they're at a disadvantage, we don't have a ton of time. Maybe I shouldn't set you up, but why are they at a disadvantage? Is it because the owners just don't have the same amount to spend?
Yes, economic disparity. The amount of revenue that these markets generate. It's not even close. Los Angeles versus Pittsburgh is a joke. Los Angeles versus Milwaukee is a joke. Now, owners in the certain small markets can spend more than they do, and that's part of this problem here. That's part of the equation. But at the same time, there's no denying that the amount of revenue generated in individual markets is vastly different and growing wider all the time.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the insight as always, Ken Rosenthal, the hardest working man in the game. We look forward to seeing you as the ALCS continues on Fox. And at some point next week, Fair Territory is coming back. We're not certain yet. We're juggling everything with end schedule. But for you guys listening and watching, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next week and enjoy the postseason.